sobriety was something that was just so foreign to me for such a long time. I mean, I used and drank for 9 years of my life, ever since I was pretty much 12, 13 years old until I got sober 4.5 years ago. And it's all I ever knew. It's all I ever wanted to do. And, getting sober was like a real painful experience for me for many, many years. I would get sober and stay sober for a very short period of time and go back and do it all over again. Um, so I had no real like resemblance of a life that contained sobriety. All I ever knew from the time I was 12, 13 years old until 4.5 years ago was being high constantly. I mean, I'm an intravenous heroin user. And so it kind of grabbed me, held on to me, and I had no idea how to get rid of it. Um, and so when I got sober for the first probably year to year and a half of my sobriety, it was difficult. It was very, very hard for me to try and maintain the sobriety that I had kept. For me, I mean, my program consisted of AA. That's how I got sober. Was in Alcoholics Anonymous, um, and I had a regimented schedule of what I did every single day from the moment I woke up till the moment I went to bed. Looking back on it now, it's the single reason why I stayed sober is because it was the first time in my life I think I had ever actually committed to doing something start to finish. Simply because there were many, many times where I lost it all. I mean, I have overdosed. I have been to jail multiple times. I've the lowest of the lows. I've been there. Um, and to look back on like where my life was 4.5 years ago to where it is now, um, you know, some would say that it's just not possible, because of how bad it really was for me. And looking at it now today, as a successful, productive member of society, it's pretty astonishing. I even trip myself out when I think about, the drastic change between now and then.
It was quite the long journey for Pete and I with Alex. I mean, as he said, it was many, many years of tough times, hard times, and scary times. I mean, we almost lost him, and fighting to try and find one place to put him in and then the next place to put him in, but never giving up on him. That I think was the one thing as a family we all knew we were not going to give up on him. Love was the biggest thing that kept us all together. Pete and I and the kids, we knew nothing about addiction, nothing. We knew that Alex had problems and was in trouble, but how to learn about them and how to fix them, we had no idea. We were blind. We, we kept it as a family issue. We didn't go and seek out to siblings or other people to get the information. We, for a lot of the time, I mean, in the beginning, I was embarrassed that I had a child that had a problem. So we kept it a secret. And, but then the more and more that we got educated and we started going to and participating in the rehab of Alex's treatment, and I did therapy, I did Al-Anon, the more educated we became. And, we realized that this was Alex's journey. Alex had to fix this. We could love without enabling, but just always being there for him and never giving up on him.
Like Patty said, there wasn't a lot of information. I read everything I could read. I talked to doctors. I went to meetings with Alex. I think one of the most important things for people who are watching this to to do is to try to get as much information. And like Alex said, it's probably different with every person who has an addiction problem, whether it be heroin or alcohol or meth or whatever it is. And we just didn't have very much information, and we made a heck of a lot of mistakes.
You know, my story was that I went in to rehab or wherever I was trying to go to get sober, kicking and screaming every single time. I had no desire to get sober. I didn't want to be sober. It was so painful for me. It was the most uncomfortable feeling to be sober and not inebriated. So for me, getting the routine of like waking, like my routine in early sobriety was I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, or I was at a meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning every single day, 7 days a week. I immediately went to work. I worked Monday through Friday. On the weekends, meetings again. Everyone that I knew in my life at that time, all of my friends, every one of them, they were all in recovery. My whole life was consumed with sobriety. So I really had no room for error. You know, I lived in a sober living house for about 30 days after I left the treatment center, just to kind of like get myself back up on my feet. And, you know, it wasn't until I think I found some purpose in my life, I think is really what changed it. You know, for me, my whole life, I had just been searching for relief from the feeling that I was feeling, which really wasn't even drug use and my addiction. It was just this constant voice in my head that wouldn't shut up. And I obviously, you know, the drugs and the alcohol quieted that. You know, I tell people all the time that, you know, I don't believe for a second that drugs and alcohol were my problem. I know for a fact they weren't. I was my problem. The way that my thought process, you know, the noise in my head, that was my problem. Drugs and alcohol were simply just the solution to the problem that I had. If there was an anxiety about something, I thought it, you know, like I was riddled with anxiety 24/7. And the drugs and alcohol were the solution to quiet the noise in my head. You know, I was not capable of walking through life without getting high.
And I mean, like Patty said, I mean, I still worry about him, obviously, and probably will for a long time. But the man has just turned the corner incredibly, as far as, I mean, like he owns his own business, and you know, he's getting married, and there's a lot of, I mean, I would have bet 5 years ago that would never happen. And I think the key is, you know, the person has to want it, number one, really bad. I mean, we just kept putting him in one place after another place after another place. And his sister was instrumental in keeping him alive. She would find places that would take him when we couldn't find any places. And this place, luckily, was, you know, the end of the line for him, and it worked. And now he has that incredible sense of self-worth, and we couldn't be more proud.
I didn't want to accept that my child was having problems. So I believed in what he was telling us until my gut instinct as a mom said, something's not right. And I think that's the number one thing that I would tell other parents is trust your instincts. If you think that something is going on with your child and that something is wrong, it probably is. So then we knew that there was a problem. So I slowly started reading books. And the biggest book that was alarming to me, and I said, yep, that's Alex, that's Alex, that's Alex. That's, I think, when it became a reality.
If I was able to speak with my younger self, and my younger self was actually capable of listening to what I had to say, you know, I would tell myself to stop fighting it. That would have probably been the message in so many words I would try to portray to myself. I was the kind of person who I was not strong enough in the beginning of my sobriety to make any decisions for myself whatsoever. None. All of the decision-making power in my life was stripped away from me when I first got sober. I mean, I was basically told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to bed. And I fought it tooth and nail every step of the way. And if I could tell anyone in early sobriety, or myself, like, it would be simply to just stop listening to the voice inside of your head that tells you that you want to fight whatever they're telling you to do. And so
for me, if I could tell parents today what I know now that's different when Alex was deep in his addiction, the biggest thing is probably have consequences and stick with those consequences. And for Alex, he started using at a very young age, so he was under our roof. So we could have controlled a lot more boundaries. We could have taken phones away and absolutely followed through, stuck to our guns, but we didn't. So that's the number one thing I would tell other parents is set boundaries, stick with those boundaries. The other thing I would say is just make sure as a mom and a dad that you're on the same page at all times. Because a lot of times that's not what we did, the situation. So, and educating ourselves on it, reading about it, going to Al-Anon meetings, going to group therapies. One that is having a problem is to, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to speak up and learn about the disease. Because if you don't educate yourself and if you don't learn about it, you can't be there to help them.